Hello there, beautiful friends from around the world. I'm going to be your host, Black and Fist, and I am bringing you a very special interview from Falconer Productions Music with the one and only Bruce Falconer.
Hi guys, welcome to our studio here, and thank you Juan for doing this interview.
Thank you for accepting. This is going to be a very special treat for all of you guys.
And I'm looking forward to it.
So how is it that you got into musical composition in the first place? Was music something that you've always intended to do?
Absolutely, yes. When I was a kid, I started out with piano lessons when I was around 10. And my piano teacher was a wonderful lady, taught me a lot about music and playing the piano. And one of the things you have to do when you start out is you have staff paper and you learn how to write treble clefs and bass clefs and time signatures and notes and everything. And after about a week of doing that, I looked at the stuff and I said, that's not what this paper's for. This paper's for writing music.
Okay.
So I started writing music, and my teacher would let me play the pieces I wrote if she just wanted to make sure that I'd practiced my lessons. So as a reward for practicing and having a good lesson, the last 5 minutes of our lesson always would be from me playing my music that I had written that week or that I was working on in the course of that particular month.
So you started playing piano. I'm pretty sure that helped when in the future you started to compose music yourself, since piano is a very versatile instrument.
Yeah, who knew how great the piano would be? Instruments, not the first, but one of the first. When I was in grade school in the first through third, you had music classes, and they put a recorder in our hands, which at the time it was plastic instead of wood, and it was called a flutophone. So that was really my first instrument other than singing, but piano was my legitimate first instrument.
So how was it that you were contacted to do the soundtrack for Dragon Ball Z? How long have you already been working in the industry?
Well, I was working on a PBS special about hot air balloons, and out of the blue one Monday early afternoon, I got this call from Gen Fukunaga asking me if I'd like to write the music for Dragon Ball Z. And it was like, wow, who is this? And so I did a little bit of checking it out, and it was like, okay, yeah, Dragon Ball Z sounds like a cool show. And I caught an episode and had a nice dialogue with Gen about how we would go about it, and it was just one of those moments that when I was working on one show for television, and somebody was asking me to write some music for another show. I had no idea that there were 291 episodes, and it was an enormous show, but I quickly learned more about it.
So working on the balloon show really got you in the door?
No, that was just a show that I'd been working on. I had been doing Your New House was another TV show I did, which predates a lot of reality television. I had been doing some music for feature work and music for documentaries for television, public television, public broadcasting. I had been doing some videos and some short films. So I've been writing music for a long time for the media when that call came in.
So when you started to compose music for Dragon Ball Z and all, when you first got your first eyes on it, what were your major influences for composing for the show? What were you trying to do for the show? And did the Japanese or the previous Ocean Group soundtrack at all influence your decisions? Or did you want to make your own mark on on the show yourself?
Well, I was given a couple of episodes to look at from previous of the English versions that apparently had been done by Ocean. And I didn't have a lot of contact with the Japanese music other than just checking out some of what it was. I did mainly watched some of the ocean to see what they liked and what the producers didn't like and where they wanted to go. And then I told them my ideas of what the music needed to be, and they liked what they heard, and I developed some of the musical themes. One of the first pieces that I wrote was the song that became the theme song that replaced Rock the Dragon, which was my Dragon Ball Z theme song. That is the same song that was used in the Atari video games.
So when you really got into composing music for DBZ, how was the typical process for doing an episode? Well, what did you go through?
Well, for me, writing music for film and for television, and especially a show of the magnitude of Dragon Ball Z, I realized that there were core characters, and each character for me would ultimately have his or her own musical theme. And depending on what the character was doing, what Goku was doing, what Frieza was doing, what everybody, they all had their own core theme. So if they were being powerful, then the theme would show itself in a powerful way. If they were fighting at one moment, or if they were doing something else, the theme would just morph with them and kind of represent what they were thinking, how they were feeling, what their challenges might be in the particular scene they were in. So it was very, very much the inspiration came from the characters and the actions that they were doing.
That's very interesting, because one characteristic of your score is that every character, or at least the major characters, do have their own themes. Do you personally have a favorite?
For me, the opening theme song was kind of one of Goku's theme songs, because the show is a lot about Goku. I don't want to diminish the roles of everybody else, because they're all important too. But it was like Goku was like the start of it all, at least from what I was seeing. And the other things that I do is that, so it's about characters, the music and the characters are tied together. It's also about action and plot and the action of a particular scene, particular episode. And so when I write music for television, episodic television, or a show of this magnitude that has a story arc that's very long, I make sure that the music and the scene are intertwined together. It's a choreography between the visual and the musical. And so I do very copious notes of every action, every piece of dialogue, every scene. Of course, from watching my fight scenes that every hit and every beginning of a hit and the end of the hit or throwing a spirit bomb or anything, whatever it is, those things I document, and they become part of the choreography of how the music is going to support the scene, support the character, tell the story, or help tell the story, so that it's all fused together. And one of the things that ultimately that I've always wanted to do too is to have the music also stand on its own as a good piece of music, but not interfere with what's going on with the character or his dialogue or what he's doing. I wanted to support. So for me, it's in a way it's a very operatic kind of genre as well, because we're telling the whole story. It's a play that's in animation that is set to music, set to dialogue, set to action, and it all fuses together so that it becomes one cohesive, powerful story.
One of the fan favorites and one of the favorite themes that you've ever composed was for the Cell theme and a lot of the music that's composed there. When you were doing that whole saga, what was your approach? What was your direction that you were trying to take the music in that whole arc?
The storyline was about Cell, and he starts out in this imperfect form, and he evolves. And so his theme had to evolve. And so he went from a very pure form to a real transition through that, and ultimately this big, powerful, grungy kind of statement of who he became. So with every iteration of who he became, the music would ramp up and change character to fit with how he was changing. So you may recall that it starts with a very pure sounding theme with and the melody was like almost a sine wave, which is a very pure, almost flute-like tone, but even purer than a flute because it's devoid of harmonics. And then, so it just gradually evolved as Cell did.
So while working on the show, what was your parameters? What was your level of artistic freedom? Did Funimation give you any suggestions or demands, or were you pretty much let loose to do with what you please?
We would have creative meetings, and I would talk with the producer, and we would go over things that were parts of the story and the elements of the story, and how are we going to have this particular season be unique, and then another season would be another direction we might go. Ultimately, after those creative meetings, I had a reasonable understanding of what their path was in their direction towards producing the episodes with the English translations and direction with their voice actors. And I would create the music and pretty much had complete control over what I did musically. They occasionally had a pre-production person helping the director with highlighting in the script. I had copies of the scripts as well as copies of the particular episode with a rough mix of the voice acting and, of course, the visuals. I would use all of that stuff to incorporate how the music was going to be created for that particular episode. And one of the things that kept a unity over the course of a long, extended arc of seasons and the whole saga itself and the whole story was the fact of using themes for each character. In that way, whether you're at the beginning of, say, episode 68, or you're at the end of 291, there is something there that's shared between and all along the journey because of the themes.
So it's been actually quite a few years since you have worked on DBZ. After all these years, and maybe after all these time, you have to reflect on all the work that you've done for the show. Has your perspective changed at all? How has your perspective been through all the years that have passed since doing the soundtrack for DBZ?
I've always enjoyed the process. Working on the show was a lot of fun, and I'm very much gratified by how my music for the show was received in a different way than most shows or even other sagas of Dragon Ball. I appreciate the loyalty and the praise and the compliments that my music for Dragon Ball Z has had from everybody who likes what I've done. And it's always very gratifying to know that even now, almost 16 years later, that the show still lives. Even though it's not on Cartoon Network anymore, it would be nice if it was on Cartoon Network. I think Adult Swim was a great place for it to be, and I think that my style of music, my approach, is something that Dragon Ball Z fans have embraced because they like something that's more comprehensive creatively, that tells the story. Thank you guys out there who appreciate what I did, and what I'm always willing to do is write good music for good television, good stories like Dragon Ball Z, one of the greatest sagas of any kind of an anime, because people who ultimately put it on the television didn't think that audiences would appreciate such an epic story, and it's counter to that. It's like they really appreciate a story that has such a long time frame to unfold and develop.
So are there any songs in the soundtrack that personally stand out to you, or you have maybe a good story that just while you were working on? Is there anything from the whole soundtrack that just stands out to you personally?
In some degree, everything, because I wouldn't have it on there if it wasn't something I really, loved. But the opening theme that I mentioned was a real favorite, and I used it in so many permutations along the way, and became the basis of other themes that are so, thanks for everybody, enjoying things like SSJ3. When the 291, I wish that last scene had been longer in the episode, because it was like it just got established, and there was hardly enough time of Goku saying goodbye. And it was like, there was that theme, and it was melded with one of the other themes, which was kind of like the home theme.
Yeah, the Earth song.
Music song.
Yeah, I like that one.
And so both songs are fused together, playing together, and it was kind of like Goku saying goodbye to his home for a moment, and still wanted to have a warm, fuzzy feeling of him off doing another for the good of everybody, helping Boo. And another theme I really liked was the transition of Captain Ginyu, and some of the comedy back in that saga, where Ginyu gets turned into a frog, and he gets this love interest from another frog.
Yeah.
And so I borrowed a very famous leitmotif from Wagner about failed love that was doomed from the beginning. And so, kind of tongue-in-cheek, Ginyu doesn't want to have anything to do with this frog, so he hobbles away to get away from her. And, it was sort of hapless, and just another one of those comedy points that are so fun in Dragon Ball Z. You've got all the serious stuff, and then you get the comedy you get hit with. And it's great because it's just like it's part of life. And so who knew that, he was trying to transform others and ended up transformed himself.
Right.
And a few others along the way. There's 70 hours of music. It's hard to pick a favorite, because it was all just a wonderful endeavor, and just really, if the music, if I didn't like the music, it wouldn't have been there. So looking at it 16 years later, it's still, those are some of my thoughts initially, immediately.
Moving on from Dragon Ball Z, what are some of your other projects? What are some of your current or recent projects that you have done.
Well, I did a feature film called The Bystander Theory, and it's a live action, it's drama, and kind of has a little bit of mystery in it. And it's a little bit different style, but I encourage everybody to watch it. And I am working on an indie label of up-and-coming artists, and so we've been producing CDs for it's all different styles. I've been working on a film development for a drama called War and Honor, and I still have this this show that we've done some work on called Airnor, and nobody's picked it up yet, so we don't have a lot of it done because it's just out there waiting. It's kind of ready to be picked up, and some of the music's been done. Would love to do that. That would be a fun thing. I've really appreciated how my fans have supported and complimented me on the work for the music for Dragon Ball Z, and I'm going to be creating a tribute piece as a way of saying thank you to my fans, and it's kind of a tribute Dragon Ball Z piece of my reflection on it, and so that'll be coming sometime in the next several months, and hope everybody likes that.
I really appreciate it. It's been an honor to interview you, as I know that you haven't done any of these or much of these at all, so I really appreciate it, and hopefully it goes well for all of your future endeavors.
I want to say thank you to all my fans out there. I appreciate your compliments, and I appreciate you're still watching the show. And Juan, I want to thank you for this interview and an opportunity to say hello and just reach out there and say thanks to everybody. And like I always say on my CDs, you guys rock. Thanks for appreciating Dragon Ball Z.
It's been an honor. Thank you, Bruce.